It is good to be with you. The show begins in just a minute. Tony Katz, great to be with you. Tony Katz today is the name of the show, heard in places across the country, growing like mad. And of course, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, on the Twitter X, on Facebook, Tony Katz Radio, Instagram, wherever it is we are. I'm glad you guys are here. Let's talk about some fires. We'll get into it. What's with my hair? The damage is incalculable when we talk about the amount of money. The amount of money that it's going to take to rebuild Southern California, astronomical. There is an app called Watch Duty, and it is the app I use to keep an eye on the fires. You've got what we know in Palisades in Southern California, 17,234 acres at last count. You've got what's known as the Eaton Fire that has cost lives, 10,590 acres. The Hearst Fire is 855. At last check, they claim that this had 10% containment. 855 acres at 10% containment. But the Palisades Fire, 0. It's not contained. No question that they're not going to be able to get it contained for a while. Same thing with the Eaton Fire. And last night came the Sunset Fire, which was right there in the Hollywood Hills. We're talking about Runyon Canyon. Now, these places may not be known to you by name, but you've seen them, and you've seen them in film. And even if you've never seen them and you're like, this is happening in California, how does this affect me? Who do you think is going to pay for the rebuild? And as a follow-up, what is the lesson learned here? What happens when you allow people who know nothing about policy and who care nothing about policy to be people in charge of policy? You get this. An entire society of people who want to say, well, the real problem is climate change. Tunny, Pookie, Boo Bear, Shmoo. It's not climate change. It's the people and the policies all focused on the wrong things. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. 833-468-8669, 833-GOT-TONY. That is how you get to be a part of the show. Of course, live streaming, wherever it is you get your live stream, on the Twitix at Tony Katz. Go to the YouTube channel. You can go anywhere and find it. It's on Facebook, Tony Katz Radio. Go ahead, be a part of it. Check it out for yourself. Not everything is about this fire. I have a tremendous amount to get to. And the funeral for Jimmy Carter today, you want nutty? You want to see something absolutely amazing? How about the idea of Donald Trump and Barack Obama just hanging out, smiling at each other, chatting it up?
President Obama there, elected in 2008, served 2 terms, and then yielded
like they're long-lost friends. And you're like, what is possibly happening here? I will explain that all coming up. Oh, when Jill Biden sat next to Kamala Harris and not a word was spoken. Trump shaking hands with Mike Pence. What a world we live in. Politics, baby. It is a game. What is happening in California is not a game. What's happening in California is absolutely horrific. And the reason it matters to the rest of us is what it is we learn from it. We have seen quite clearly, we have seen quite obviously, that the policies of the political left that have been put into place, the policies don't work. There is no one there who knows how to properly deal with a fire. If the West LA fire chief, I think that's who she is hired because she's gay and she's focused on DEI and being more inclusive, you're not focused on fighting fires. If the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, is focused on DEI, she's not focused on what it takes to fight fires, something that might be of serious importance when you are the mayor of Los Angeles, a town in a desert. She cut $17.5 million. $17.5 million she cut from fire safety. And there she was on an airplane. And she's asked about this. And oh my, oh my.
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today?
Let me explain what's going on here. She is on the plane coming back from Ghana. Why in the world is the mayor of Los Angeles in Ghana when there are fires? Well, there was the president, and I think it was being inaugurated, and she was sent by Joe Biden. Oh, what an honor. I'll go right away. Well, there are fires going on and issues. She's in the, when you get off the plane and there's that little door, and sometimes they're bringing luggage up the little door. That's where she is. And there is a Sky News reporter who's on the same plane. He's got his camera guy, he's got the gear, got everything else. Well, as long as I'm here, I might as well ask some questions. And he does.
Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position?
Tony Katz also says you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Yeah, it's not just Elon.
Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster?
She says nothing. She is staring out, staring at the ground, not looking at this reporter at all. She doesn't want to see the guy. She has absolutely nothing to say. But as we know, and as we understand, not having anything to say is par for the course. To have something to say would be to understand what is happening in the first place. And that is not why she got elected, is it? She got elected against somebody who was far more competent because, well, this is how you prove that you're good and you're decent. This is how you do the right thing. Who taught us this? Justin Trudeau. Did or did not Justin Trudeau just ever so recently lecture the United States for not voting for Kamala Harris? Did he or did he not say that you had the chance to elect a woman and you failed epically?
We were supposed to be on a steady, if difficult sometimes, march towards progress. And yet, just a few weeks ago, the United States voted for a second time to not elect its first woman president. Everywhere, women's rights and women's progress is under attack, overtly and subtly. But I want you to know that I am, and always will be, a proud feminist. You will always have an ally in me and in my government.
His government is no more. He's already announced that he's resigning. Love being lectured to by the son of Fidel Castro. No, is that not? Do we not say that? Look at a photo. Look at a picture of Trudeau. Look at a picture of Fidel Castro, and then you tell me what the heck is going on. No, you go ahead. You go ahead. I'll wait. I'll wait. Look at the photos. You tell me what's happening.
Okay, people, move along. There's nothing to see here.
Yes, there is. There is absolutely something to see here. What if, of what conversation is Justin Trudeau having, who right there is emblematic of the political left, about skill set? Skill set didn't matter. What about policy? Policy didn't matter. He just told you. He just told you what mattered. What mattered was genitalia. What mattered was electing a woman. You haven't elected a woman. Maybe she was terrible. Maybe she was a moron. Maybe she was a serial killer. I don't know. I'm not claiming that Kamala Harris was a serial killer. But Justin Trudeau says it doesn't matter. That is the guiding principle. That guiding principle then makes its way into the fire chief in Los Angeles and makes its way to the mayor of Los Angeles. By the way, that fire chief, for all of the wokeness, wrote a letter to the mayor saying, hey, you cut $17.5 million from our budget. That is going to impact our ability to engage in training and fighting what? Wildfires. We won't be able to train for wildfires. We won't be able to properly fight wildfires because you cut $17.5 million from the budget. And one could argue that budgets needed to be cut. But I'm willing to bet you that I, who have no budgetary skill set whatsoever, other than this is what I spend on cigars, and if it's not enough, I'll just spend more, I could figure that one out. Me, dopey radio host. Well, not so dopey. And also, damn sexy. That's not the point. Settle down, everybody. $17.5 million cut, and here we are. This is a conversation about what happens when you do not focus on the right things. And what's happening in Southern California is the conversation for all of us, every single one of us. What happens when we don't focus? What happens when we allow them to decide what matters? They can't figure out what matters. They think what matters is that you have a certain number of this type, a certain number of that type, a certain number of the other type. Can they do the job? They don't think that matters. Justin Trudeau just told you, as long as you have a woman president, that's all that matters. If she can do the job, that's just dumb luck. That's a stupid way to run a country. It's a stupid way to live a life. Not usually a guy who uses the word stupid. I don't like the words dumb or stupid. I think they end conversation, and I think that's kind of valueless. But it is what it is. It is a stupid way to run a country. It is a stupid way to live a life. The people of California are now seeing this. The people of California are now dealing with this. It's been fascinating to look at the social media feeds. One of the people you should be following these days is Justine Bateman, the actress and director from Family Ties. And you're like, I have not heard of Justine Bateman since Family Ties. And you'd have to be a Gen Xer to know the show. She's been remarkable. She has been unbelievable in her commentaries about Biden, her commentaries about free speech, her commentaries certainly about Gavin Newsom and how Gavin Newsom must be fired, which is accurate, by the way. But you're seeing more and more people who are noticing how horrible everything is, how terrible it has all become. They see it, they recognize it, and they say, this is just the very, very worst. This is terrible. Why? How could this have possibly happened? Which brings us to this from David Axelrod. David Axelrod puts out a tweet. And it says, what caused the cataclysmic LA fires? Read this story and consider the fact that Trump has called climate change a hoax and plans to scrap efforts to slow its progress. And he post to some article from the Associated Press. They don't know what started these fires, guys. They have no idea. There could be arsonists right now. They don't have an answer. But you understand how insignificant this is, because this is not anything. This is distraction. Now, you'll find me, I'm repeating myself a couple times within today, within the conversation, because some of these things are necessary to repeat. This is distraction. As I noted, every claim of climate change exists to remove the recognition that progressive policies and politicos have failed the people. Los Angeles burns because they have no water and because they hire people with no skills to fight fires. David Axelrod wants those policies and those politicos. Say no to David Axelrod. These things matter. These things matter, and they matter greatly. Because what is happening there could happen to you, to your town, to your neighborhood, to your state. What is happening in Southern California is horrific, and the damage is going to be, as I said, incalculable in terms of what it's going to cost to rebuild. And wait till you find out you can't rebuild. Oh, wait till you see that one. But for the rest of us, this is a cautionary tale. You cannot vote for these woke people, these woke principles, these woke policies. They will kill you. They will burn you down, body and soul. These people don't care about policy. They don't care about results. They care only about feeling good. Do not put them in positions of power. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. Guys, welcome back. Tony Katz. Good to be with you. The radio show will be back with us in a couple of minutes. And yeah, I know. I need a haircut. I'm fully aware. Good to be with you. Good to be here. Yeah, I am. The more I stare at these fires, the more horrific it all gets. But what really has got me kind of moved is what happens in this narrative fight about, well, this is climate change. This needs to be fought hard. Because if these people are allowed to get a foothold in this, nobody will learn anything. Newsom has to be held to account. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think Newsom should be accused of murder. Karen Bass has to be held to account. And more importantly, these voters. If I see Hollywood types complaining about the lack of services, it's not that I'll disagree with them. It's that they have to be asked, what will you do differently? Not what have you done? We know what they've done. What will you do differently? Notice I'm clapping back. Look at me. Look at me. I'm just, I could be on Bravo. I'm Tim Walz. What will you do differently? How will you change what it is you do? And if you're not willing to change, with all due respect, don't ask me to care. I'm having a little trouble caring as it is. I'm more concerned about what this means for the rest of us. And a lot of people who did nothing wrong, who don't support any of this nonsense, are getting abused in the process. I care about them greatly. Let's get back to it. You do not know the name Gabe Whitley, and you're lucky, because this is a very odd story that has involved people at my home radio station on 93.1 FM WIBC in Indianapolis. Everyone, everywhere, no matter where you are, no matter where you live, you have got people who run for office consistently, insistently. They're never going to win. They don't have any money. They can't campaign. They're what I would describe as kooky. You have, they exist where you are. You have them. And they're constantly running for office. And you're like, this is just too weird. Well, there was a guy here named Gabe Whitley who was running for Congress. He's a Republican. Honest Gabe. That was his actual campaign slogan. And he decided that some people at the station that I'm a part of, they were disparaging him and doing this, and then he was making claims about them, and lawsuits were going back and forth, and defamation suits. It was nutty. But this guy was making claims about getting big donations to his campaign. And then people started looking at the campaign donations. They're like, who? Are these real people? Well, it turns out, if you want to know about crazy, according to the FBI, this guy, Gabe Whitley, made up biographical details for 67 people in 2023, claiming they contributed over $220,000 to his campaign. And he did it again in 24. He falsified loan documents saying that he got a $100,000 loan. Who does this? For what purpose do you do this? The thing is crazy. He falsified the whole campaign. Of course, he wanted to show that he had greater money than he did. That would maybe get more people to contribute, right? That was the purpose. You didn't think you'd get caught? He has agreed to plead guilty to falsifying campaign contributions. He faces 5 years in federal prison and a fine of up to $250,000. I only ever had one interaction with the dude on Twitter, and then I'm like, I'm staying away from this dude. Other people had it far worse. I am always stunned by the hubris of the things that people do and they think they'll get away with. Stunning. This is Tony Katz today. Very, very good. We'll take the quick break. Chuck DeVore scheduled to be with us from the Texas Public Policy Foundation. He also was an assemblyman for years in California. So he knows about how they used to prepare for things. And we'll get into what we haven't seen, which is preparation. Keep it here. I'll be right back. so let's see if I know what I'm doing right here. That's Chuck DeVore from the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Now, we're live streaming, but we're not yet on radio, Chuck, so people can see you and they can stare at your mug and they can be like, my gosh, how will I ever be that handsome? And the answer is they won't. They won't.
You know, it's tough for some people, Tony.
I know.
People, not us.
No, not us. Not us. You know what you need? You need some Chuck DeVore gear. That's what you need. You need like a CD right there.
I had Chuck DeVore gear at one time, and I'm not seeing. Well, there's actually some in my office. I don't know whether I should list this or not.
Don't risk it. Whatever it is,
I can show your audience.
Don't do it. All right, do it quick.
All right.
It is.
Here, we'll give it a shot. This could be very risky.
Don't be very risky. Down. It's a family show.
There you go.
Oh, look at that.
There you go.
Yeah. Chuck DeVore assembly.
Yeah.
Fancy.
There you go. You asked for it. You asked for it, and I showed it to you.
You did a heck of a job. Tilt your camera down just a touch, just a little bit right here. There it is. And then just back yourself up a 1/4 inch. Oh, now he's a professional. Now he looks.
All right. Are we ready to go?
Yeah, we're going to be. We're about 30 seconds from the radio show. But I mean, really, this conversation kind of starts with we're dealing with horror in California, and you know these people, and certainly I want to get some insight from you. But the part two that I want to get to is California wasn't always like this. In the preparation and preparedness concept, and this is where I want to kind of see what you remember from your days there, which just a couple decades ago, and then what now? Where are those differences? And that's what I want to get into. So stay right there, Chuck. We'll get right with you. It's Chuck DeVore right there. Good man. Good guy. Better wife. What a difference a couple of decades makes. Because within a decade, within a couple of decades, within a generation, you get different philosophies. You have put different people in charge who have then put different people in charge. And it's clear that what we're seeing in California is a sea change, certainly from the days of the governorship of Ronald Reagan. You could argue that this is different than the governorship of Jerry Brown. Tony Katz today. So good to be with you. California has been through a lot of different governors. These are the people who survived Gray Davis to then deal with the insanity of Arnold Schwarzenegger. But in all of those moves and maneuvers and machinations about weird, strange, odd, peculiar California, did they do so little to be so ill prepared for when the fires came, the natural disasters that they know about? Chuck DeVore joins us right now. He's with the Texas Public Policy Foundation. He does outreach there, but he was an assemblyman in the state of California, a former senatorial candidate in the state of California. I lived in California during those years. And Chuck, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Let's start with what it is you remember and you experienced being an assemblyman in California. How much of your tenure was spent discussing these issues of preparedness for fires or mudslides or some of the natural things that California has to contend with? And as you know it, when did these changes towards not being prepared come about?
Yeah, it's a complicated question, Tony. It actually goes back decades, and there's essentially two different regions of California that you have to look at separately because they have separate problems. One would be in the areas where you have pine trees, a lot of these more productive areas where you have the redwoods and other evergreens are privately owned and managed by the state, in other words, state regulations. The less productive areas, again, vast swaths, are controlled by the federal government, often the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And this really applies to Northern California and the Sierra Nevada mostly, a little bit to the big mountains to the north and east of Los Angeles. But what's happened over the years is concern about environmental issues, things like the spotted owl, have largely destroyed the domestic timber industry, which used to go in and clear out the wood and then clean things up. They would often use burns to burn the underbrush and get that fuel load reduced. And then they would maintain the forest and make sure that it didn't get too dense. And so what's been happening up north is that the amount of timber that's been growing every year, just relentless growth because of sunshine and carbon dioxide and water, vastly exceeds the amount of timber that's either being harvested or burned. And so what's been happening up north is increasingly intense wildfire. You have stands of timber where you have 30 times the number of trees than you should for healthy development. And because of California's Mediterranean climate, you frequently have long periods of time that start in the summer, late spring, summer, and will go into the winter without any rainfall at all. This is very different from the rest of the country that's quite used to thunderstorms and a more even amount of precipitation as the year goes through. So California isn't like that. Now in Southern California, you have a different problem. You have you have coastal sage, you have chaparral, and this is a naturally occurring fire-adapted plant. Plus, of course, you have native invasive species, certain types of grass that are more flammable. And these grow up along the coast of Southern California, where it's very dry, and even more so a Mediterranean climate, where it's not unusual to not have a drop of measurable rain for 5, 6, 7, 8 months. That's why people moved to California before it was so grossly mismanaged by the left. They love the climate. It was
Right.
dry and sunny all the time. Now, Tony, what's been happening in Southern California then, and this to a certain extent is in the north as well, but it's particularly acute in the south, is that it's very difficult to get a permit to burn the excess fuel because of the air quality management districts. You also have environmental lawsuits. You have, people who contend that, well, if you do this prescribed burn, you're putting people at risk. You have problems with people with emphysema. We're going to require you to put out notices everywhere. And frequently it'll take up to 3.5 years to go through the paperwork to even be able to burn.
Let me stop you right there just quickly. Talking to Chuck Tavor of the Texas Public Policy Foundation, former assemblyman in the state of California. So they would utilize a regulatory environment to prevent what is smart policy. But there is something to be said for the people of Southern California, especially when you talk about Laurel Canyon, Mulholland Drive, Topanga Canyon. These are gorgeous drives. And when I lived there, I no matter how broke I was, driving through them always made me feel better. But my wife and I would absolutely comment, if there's a fire here, everybody here is dead. We're talking about 2-lane roads, one in each direction.
Yeah.
One fire, it's done. The people love the scenery and love the scenario. They would work to prevent rational, proper policy from being implemented. True?
Yeah, and Tony, if you just take a satellite shot of Pacific Palisades, much of which was burned to the ground over the last couple of days.
Frightening.
I did this yesterday. And as you know, I'm a retired intelligence officer. I'm used to looking at overhead imagery. It's something that I've been trained to do. But even a civilian untrained can simply look at Pacific Palisades and see with their own eyes that very few homes have the recommended 100-foot defensible space around them, because, as you point out, people like their trees. And the problem when you have these Mediterranean climates and you have restrictions on water because the city of Los Angeles or the county of Los Angeles can't get enough water supplies, also due to environmental regulations. And so they start to put restrictions on the amount of watering or irrigation that can be done. So you have these trees, some of which are not native to the area, many of which, in fact, are not native to the area. They're not getting enough water, and they're too close to the homes. And so then you get these Santa Ana wind conditions, which have nothing to do with climate change. Let me say that again.
Right.
Nothing to do with climate change. What usually happens is you get a high pressure area over Las Vegas or the Four Corners region, and it causes, through its clockwise circulation, air to sweep in off the high desert. It goes up over the San Gabriel Mountains. And when air comes down at the atmosphere, the oxygen and the nitrogen descend through those canyons, physics takes over. And what happens is it gets hotter and it accelerates as it goes downhill. And so you have this phenomena that happens around this time of year, usually with the Santa Ana wind conditions, where if you're in a valley, you can get extremely high localized winds because the winds will follow kind of the valley, the topography, and then they go right out into the ocean, picking up speed and heat as they go. And if anything catches fire, because what happens is these winds are very dry. They're, like 4 or 5% humidity. And so they dry everything out in their path. And then you get these fire bugs. You get poorly maintained power lines because the power companies are having to put too much into wind and solar to meet their environmental mandates. And so they don't have the extra money to properly maintain the power lines by keeping vegetation off of them, or heaven forbid, burying them in urban areas. And so you have plenty of tinder and policies that aren't being followed as far as best practices that turn certain areas into tinder boxes.
Talking to Chuck Tavor of the Texas Public Policy Foundation. And if you don't know what the four corners are, that's where Arizona meets New Mexico, meets Utah, meets Colorado. That's the Four Corners area. So we're talking about a good distance that these things do move. But let's take a couple of moments here to get on to people. You remember the days of Gray Davis, who got recalled. You remember the days of Jerry Brown, possibly the twice Jerry Brown days. I don't mean to date you, sir. I'm just saying that you might remember those things.
Today is my 37th wedding anniversary, and I'm on the show with you and not having lunch with my wife.
Well, that's tell her I said hello, please. She's a fantastic woman, as I said. What changed? You could have had Republicans and Democrats who all at least understood you have to have a level of preparedness for these things. It's very obvious that Gavin Newsom and the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, have no policy, have no plan. There is no infrastructure. There is no readiness. What happened?
Well, it's too little too late. I mean, I mentioned to you before the tremendous amount of hoops that one has to go through to burn, and that sometimes you get this crazy Kafka-esque situation where they get permission to burn after the natural burn or the arson set burn happened that ended up killing people or burning down houses. That's how slow things move. But Tony, this is a process that's gone on for a long time, and some of it has to do with the population growth in California, where you have more people moving to areas along what's known as the WUI, right? The wildland urban interface, where land is cheaper. In cases around Los Angeles, often with spectacular views. And these areas are more prone to fire hazards because they're in areas that are higher in elevation, where the winds are going to be higher. It's more difficult to get fire assets up there, fire trucks, et cetera. And again, if you don't maintain that defensible perimeter around your house, you're toast. Tony, I remember from one of the last big fires that we had, where you had the elite left-wing class, the entertainers, decrying climate change and blaming Trump, as if burning coal in China is the reason why their house burned down. Well, one of those was the rock artist Neil Young and Daryl Hannah, his common-law wife. They had this beautiful home that looked like something out of Lord of the Rings, like an elven home, all stones and
right.
Round stones and mortar. And I was looking at some of the real estate pictures of it from when they bought it, as well as Zillow. And the thing was completely overgrown with these massive oak trees over the home, big bushes and trees right up against the home. Great for privacy, great for how it looks if you want to have a party. And I'm looking at the thing going, this ain't climate change that caused it to burn down. You burned down your own damn house because you didn't cut the flammable branches and bushes and trees from away from your home. So there you are blaming Donald Trump and big oil for your own boneheaded mistakes because you like the way it looked.
But that certainly is not true of a lot of people who have now lost their home. I'm not saying no to that. I am asking, did California engage a policy shift that created the opportunity for failure here?
Yeah, I mean, it's happened over decades. That's my point. Is it's like the barnacles of the administrative state accreting every month on a boat, and before you know it, the boat's virtually inoperative. Because as I mentioned before, you have Northern California, different set of problems, virtually impossible harvest timber. The fuel buildup is relentless. You have environmentalists that are only now coming reluctantly around to agreeing that there needs to be regular fire to prevent these catastrophic wildfires if you don't allow harvesting of timber. And by the way, Tony, if you look at photographs of California from the 1800s, the gold rush, 1849, 1850, a lot of people moved out. So there was a lot of photographers that came out during the advent of the dawn of photography. And you look at these pictures of California, what do you see? You see rolling hills of grass, a few isolated live oak, and then along the creek beds, a few isolated stands of pine trees. You go to the same location in 1970, 1980, 1990, it's wall-to-wall trees right in front of your face. Well, why is that? Because the Native Americans constantly burned the landscape because they're nomadic, right? They don't have fixed homes, so they're burning because the forest does not provide them with food. Grassland does. And so they were burning all the time. The Europeans, the Americans showed up with the discovery of gold. We say, don't burn anymore. Those trees are valuable to us. We can build homes out of them. We can use them as timbers for railroad tracks. We can put them in our mines to shore up the shafts, right? And so we stopped the burning, but we harvested. And we harvested nonstop until the environmental regulations essentially killed the American timber industry. Now that's Northern California. Southern California, it's all about these burn permits in the air quality management districts, environmental lawsuits, people concerned about liability that, oh my goodness, if we set a prescribed burn and it accidentally gets out of control and burns someone's house, we're going to be sued.
Right.
And so you have this resistance to those sort of measures. You also have, of course, prioritization. Karen Bass, whom I served with in the legislature, who was for a time the Speaker of the Assembly when I was in, she's a very left-wing person. And so as she is looking at the budget, people were saying, oh, she cut the budget of the fire department by about 20 million. Yes, she did. In the context of the fire department's budget, it was a few percent. Of course, we have Bidenflation. But the point is she cut the fire department's budget. You also have underinvestment in infrastructure where I'm
right there because I take the break. Stay right there, Chuck DeVore. We'll continue on the live stream. This is Tony Katz today. I got to hit my commercials. People got
got to pay the bills.
Your point of her, and I forgot that you served in the General Assembly with her. I forgot that happened. Yes, it was $17.5 million that got cut by Karen Bass from the fire department. What else got cut?
Well, I mean, there's a chart that you can easily find on X. She actually increased the police by a significant amount. I think the fire department's budget, though, is something around, $700 million or something like that. So the cut, if I remember correctly from my back of the notebook calculation last night, was about 4%. You throw in Bidenflation, it's about a 7% cut. And so she's taking hell for that, and for the fact that she was flat-footed. She was off in Ghana, seeing the swearing in of the president. Probably won't visit when Trump gets sworn in. I doubt that. And I'm seeing from some of my friends in the anti-China space that she went with the Venceremos brigades. I think I'm mostly pronounced that correctly, but those were like the left-wing support group for Castro. So she went on these field trips for the Marxists like 17 times to visit Castro in Cuba back before she was elected. I'm pretty sure before she was elected. That was back during her community organizer days, I'm sure.
She sounds like a treat. Chuck DeVore, always a pleasure. Happy anniversary to you. Tell Dee I'm a fan, and I continue to be. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
We'll talk more later. There he goes. Chuck DeVore. Heck of a guy. Fine, upstanding young man. Goes to live his life. Interesting North and South. But I think more interesting from that conversation is that doesn't that actually tell us that you have to have more planning because you've got this elongated state, because you have all these things that are possible. You have to have different plans for different regions, and it's certainly not one size fits all. And it's certainly not, well, blame climate change when that doesn't matter. What matters is actually solving the damn problem. Appreciate him. Appreciate the insight. A little bit later on the show, Kira Davis will be with us. She fills in, of course, for me on radio and Just Listen to Yourself podcast. And she lives in the area. lives in the area, and we'll have the latest on what is going on and what she has experienced there. Now she's more in Orange County, so she is watching and just hoping things do not head down her way. That's the big hope right now. Just seeing if anything else has changed or morphed on this story, and it hasn't. You still have the funeral going on for Jimmy Carter right there. And some new legislation. Producer Landon, how far away are we? Minute and a half. I can do that. I can absolutely positively do that. Let me head back over here. If you've got questions, you can put them in the comments. I'm more than happy to pay attention to those and see what it is that you're asking. Answer it if I can, how I can, to the best of my ability. If I don't have the answer, I will tell you I do not have the answer. No shy when it comes to me. So we're going to get close to the end of this first hour, and then we're going to bring the live stream back with Keira Davis for a while. We're playing around. It's going well. And honestly, I think I'm a haircut away from happy. Although I don't know if I like this camera angle. I don't know if I like. See, look at all that. It's just the struggle, cats. The struggle is very, very real. It turns out Republicans are looking to help Trump get control of the Panama Canal. This is absolutely the right thing to do if the conversation is about China trying to have a stronghold over us, over trade, and really over things in Central and Southern America. Can't let China do that. Not now, not ever. Let's get back to the show. It's going to be real quick because I went long on that segment, and I apologize there. Do it. I went long. I apologize. I was into the conversation with Chuck DeVore. Tony Katz today. House Republicans now putting forth a bill that would allow Trump to acquire the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal Repurchase Act has been filed by Representative Dusty Johnson of South Dakota. Now, this is all about China, and China working desperately to gain footholds and control within African nations to get control of rare earth minerals and other natural resources. And the same thing is true with South America and Central America. They're putting billions in, if not trillions. Well, control of the Panama Canal is a control of trade. China doesn't get to control trade because it's not just about what they let in and what they let through. It's about every piece of information they steal. You can't trust the communist Chinese. They can't have the Panama Canal. They can't be in charge. This is a national security threat, and Trump's right to do something about it. This is Tony Katz today. And with that, guys, done with the first hour of the radio show, and appreciate you quite a bit. I am glad that you're here. I'm glad that everything is growing the way it is, and I only hope that you will subscribe on YouTube. Do that. I'd appreciate it. X Tony Katz. You've got Instagram Tony Katz, Facebook Tony Katz Radio, TonyKatz.com, and the whole YouTube thing. We have not been bothered. I'm impressed. I'm amazed. And I think there's going to be a little more love given to Facebook if they're not going to be in the game of censorship. But I want them to prove it first. I really moved away from Facebook. If they can prove that they're serious, I'm happy to be more focused there. But I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you being a part of the show. And I will catch you guys. Take care.